Hello friends, today we are going to learn about friction. In today's session, we are going to learn about some definition of friction, importance of friction, some types of friction such as rolling friction and sliding friction. Now in this image, you can see there are two types of golf ball are shown. In first golf ball, our edge is without dimples, so there are lots of drag occurring behind the ball, which reduces the flight time of the ball. While putting a dimples on the golf ball, it creates less drag behind our golf ball, which helps our golf ball to increase its flight time. Now let's talk about some basic introduction of the friction. Exactly why we are learning friction. As an automobile engineer, we are always deal with the friction while designing a component and while driving a vehicle. Our vehicles and components are always under frictional loads. We are going to design such type of machines or vehicles which are in perfect sync with the friction. We are going to reduce our friction while designing our engine, and we are going to increase our friction while designing our brake pads. Here in this image you can see some basic example of sliding friction, and from this image you can get an idea that our friction depends upon roughness of the surface. Then let's talk about friction in detail. Type of friction. How many types of frictions are there? There are total two types of friction. One is static friction and the other is dynamic friction. Static friction occurs when our object is in steady position. Dynamic friction occurs when our object is moving. Dynamic friction has two types. One is rolling friction and other is sliding friction. In this image you can see a clutch. Clutch performs on the basic principle of friction. Without the friction, clutch will fail to engage and disengage. Let's talk about rolling friction. What does this mean by rolling friction? In automobile engineering, we have seen rolling friction many times. For a basic example, our wheels which are moving on any surface is a type of rolling friction. Bearing, any kind of bearing on a shaft is an example of rolling friction. Whenever one body rolls over another body or a surface, there is a rolling friction between those two surfaces. Here you can see some basic example of rolling friction. Let's talk about sliding friction. What does it mean by sliding friction? Sliding friction occurs when one body slides over another body. In our automobile engineering, we are going to see this type of friction in piston and cylinder, valve and their stems, here you can see some basic example of sliding friction. You have faced such type of sliding friction when you were younger. So thank you friends for attending this session. link for the MCQs are given in the description box. Thank you very much.